And welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are your multi-award winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast, and we return ahead of Cup Semi-Final day, evening, wherever you are listening around the world. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're for the first time, you can find us on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're across all major audio platforms, we're of course on X, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and we're on Blue Sky too. It's another top-tier panel to discuss a top-tier game, and in its coming store, where are we? With regards to Mickey van der Ven. That'll be coming up during this show. We'll be discussing the ins, the outs, the availabilities, the non-availabilities on this show, and helping me do that to guide and steer me through. I will turn down that microphone for some of those that are in the chat right now. My apologies. I'm joined by the wonderful George Achillea. Is better me, G. Cup semi-final eve. How are we? Excited?
I am excited. Obviously, the nerves are creeping in a little bit, but very excited because this is a big, big game. We are literally 90 minutes, well, potentially more than 90 minutes, but 90 minutes in theory away from a Wembley final. So, yeah, I'm very excited. Let's get talking about Enquiries.
Absolutely. I'm conscious if I keep on talking, I might blow people's eardrums off. I thought that's just a general vibe of me generally these days. Back also on the show, listen, resident therapists, those that we turn to at the calls of a crisis, always calming us down. On the platform that's on X, it's the wonderful, the brilliant Simon Yemane's back on the show. Si, thank you so much for your time. How are you? Lovely to see you.
I'm shitting my pants. I'm good, but I'm nervous.
Wrong character. Change the character.
And breathe. I'm good there, Ricky. Thank you for having me on. Looking forward to the game tonight, and it's going to be a pleasant evening, as you all know. Thank you for having me on, and looking forward to talking about this exciting and big game.
You superstar. Love you to have you back, Si. Love you to have you back on the show. And also making up our panel. Look, he needs no introduction. He's everyone's favourite Irishman out there. Along with Matty Hayes. I've got to say that, Matty Hayes, we love you so much as well. We've got the wonderful, brilliant, superb. We've got the wonderful David Harris over at the Irish Hotspur, who brings you all that matchday content, as well as G. And someone calms us down on X. Dave, how are you? Love to have you back on here. I think it's twice in literally a couple of days. I am very blessed. And G as well. Thank you so much. D, how are you?
No, look, I'm absolutely pumped. You know, this is what we're in football for, right? Big games like this, semi-finals, where opportunity awaits. So I'm absolutely pumped, and I cannot wait to get going. Thanks very much for having me back again, especially for this big game.
Bless you. My pleasure. My absolute pleasure. Right, where do we start during where we are with regards to Tottenham at the moment? Because there's been a lot happening, it's fair to say, really even since the window has closed. Let's give you a bit of an update as to what has happened since we've last been with you. We obviously joined you on transfer deadline day. Tottenham, of course, got over the line Matisse Tell. Yes, it's taken me 2 days to get the first name right. Matisse Tell. Tottenham have got over the line. He has obviously become a massive, massive signing for Tottenham on that deadline day. And of course, we know him and Danso are both available for the Liverpool game. They go both into that squad. And the hope will be, of course, they can make an instant impact on their Tottenham Hotspur debuts. And what a time that would be. What a best time that would be away to Liverpool, of course, at Anfield, Cup semi-final second leg. Wouldn't that be terrific? We'll also give you a little bit more of an update because after Tottenham announced those two signings, there's been an absolute flurry of academy starlets that Tottenham have also signed up over the course of the last 24, 48 hours. Tottenham have confirmed the signing of 18-year-old Dan Batty from Man City. The attacking midfielder joins us on a deal which will run until the 30th of June 2028. Along with him, Tottenham also signed, just to bring that into focus as well, the signing of 18-year-old Reece Alexander Russell-Denny from Chelsea. We understand a real high potential in Reece, who is an England under-19 international, left-footed, takes great free kicks, technical and combative. John Wenham at Lily Rose tells me, friend of the show. Spurs also announced the signing of Mason Melia. Huge prospect, the 17-year-old will join us on the 1st of January 2026. Very highly regarded by the academy scouts, it has to be said. And Tottenham also completed the signing, for those that missed it out there, of Luca Fernal-Hill from Liverpool. The centre-back, 18, has signed a contract which will run until the 30th of June 2028. He joins our academy setup. I'm going to do something that's really, really off the cuff because I said I would be keeping it on the script. Dave, I feel like I've got to come to you on Mason Melia if you don't mind, because obviously a young player, huge prospect, 17-year-old striker. Have you heard anything over in the Great South of Ireland there? You can fill us in on him, Dave?
Yeah, so look, Melia has been making waves in Ireland, since he's a 15-year-old schoolboy. Making his debut in the League of Ireland, being the youngest ever player to play in the League of Ireland, but also being the youngest ever goal scorer in the League of Ireland as well. The last season he's really kicked on. And he's now playing under former Republic of Ireland manager Stephen Kenny, who has a lot of great words to say about him. And I think one thing that's really attracted a lot of interest in Mason Melia is there's not a lot of players around Europe that has his experience in men's football at his age, and he's doing some great things. I think one thing that I think maybe stands him above Troy Parrott is when Troy Parrott came to Tottenham, he came as a 16-year-old and went into the academy without really having that men's first team football behind him. Whereas with Mason Melia coming, he has that men's first team football behind him. And one thing he's very good at is his hold-up play. He's more of a player like Harry Kane-esque who likes to get involved in the play, hold up the ball rather than play off the shoulder and run in behind. And I actually had a guy on today from a Twitter account called Republic of Ireland Tracker, and he's very good. He's very knowledgeable at what he does. And he was saying to me that apparently Mason Melia has been told he will be joining up with the first team on his arrival, which I found very, very interesting. Now, you don't know. They could have said the same. Here and look at him. He's gone out on loan. But that's what I was told on Mason Melia by him. So I found that very, very interesting. But I think you've got to give Tottenham credit actually getting this signature over the line. Celtic were interested, and everyone knows that the pull that Celtic has for Irish kids. He was at a Chelsea game recently where they were trying to get a deal done. 2 years ago, he was at Man City on trial, and he actually rejected Man City's advances because they wanted to bring him in and they wanted to loan him out to their affiliate club out in Belgium. But he turned them down and he said, no, I'd rather stick in the League of Ireland and get my experience there and back myself to get a move further down the line. And that's what he's done. He's took his own development really into his own hands, which I really like. And also Bayer Leverkusen were interested in this guy as well. So Tottenham done great work to try and get this over the line. And I actually asked the guy today as well. I says, did Josh Keeley have any hand in, bring them over? Because Josh Keeley, we signed from the same club. And he said, no, he didn't. He didn't have any hand in it whatsoever. It was Tottenham that managed to get the deal done without having Keeley's influence. So I think Tottenham deserve immense credit given the interest in and around this guy. He's one of the hottest, youngest 17-year-olds in Europe. He was covered a lot by European clubs.
Dave, thank you so much. Isn't it nice for once we're actually giving them a bit of credit rather than bashing them? I mean, it's a first. That's got to be a first. What are we only we're the 5th of February? I mean, God, what's happening here? Is it? Are we on we hit a new moon or something like that? Unbelievable. There you go. A bit of credit for Tottenham to get a signing over the line, and it was even outside the window. Unbelievable. Look, we're going to come on to all that and more, but let's discuss, of course, Cup semi-final day. I think we all know how big this game is for Tottenham away at Anfield. It's going to be, look, I think for many out there, a very nervy, exciting, hugely anticipated fixture with obviously a chance in the final up for grabs. Tottenham, we know they are going to have a big task on their hands going to Anfield in terms of the magnitude of the game itself, the fixture. I think it's fair to say if you've listened to Arnie Slot, they're not going to be taking any chances. It does feel they're going to feel quite a strong side. Before we come on to, G, where we stand in terms of the team news for this one, how confident are you going to Anfield, given our record there, which I believe we've only won 3 out of the last 29 against Liverpool as a whole. And, can I tell you, he's orchestrated 2 of those wins out of the last 29. And Jason McGovern will tell us that himself. So how do you feel, G, about how do you feel about what awaits us at Anfield for you?
Listen, I think Anfield, the results and stuff speak for themselves. It's a tough ground to go to. It always has been for Spurs. But what I will say is, I've been there a few times and I have seen a few draws in my time going to Anfield, and that is all we need to get through. So it's definitely it's in our favour in that sense where at least a draw is good enough to go through. But come on, as soon as Liverpool, if they get that first goal, the atmosphere is going to be lifted. They're going to be like steamrolling through trying to get more, and we all know how many goals they can score. So it's never ever going to be an easy game. But myself personally, I'm looking forward to it loads because there's something about cup competitions, especially underdogs tend to do well. And everyone's touting us as massive underdogs because of the amount of players. I mean, I think they're only missing Trent Alexander-Arnold. Szoboszlai's now back, who was massive for them when they battered us 6-3. Obviously, was missing the last game, the first leg, I believe. So they're going to be going in as huge favourites, and everyone's written us off already. So I think that plays into our hands massively. A couple new signings through the door. I think we're all going to be super excited to see. In my opinion, I know we'll probably get onto a bit more later, but I think Danso is going to walk straight in. Tell is obviously maybe a bit 50-50. Is he going to be there instead of Richie? Is he going to be there alongside on the right wing? Kulusevski in the middle? We don't really know yet, but a signing of his caliber, I would be very, very, very surprised if Ange doesn't start him straight away, especially because we're missing so much in that forward line and his qualities. And his 1v1 ability, shooting from outside the box, very similar to old Sonny. So I'd be surprised if he doesn't start, and especially Ange persuading him to come to Spurs. Part of that is going to be you're going to get the most game time here, so it doesn't make sense for me to have him on the bench. So I'm excited to see those players, and I really think the players are going to be fine for Ange on this one. So yeah, I'm really excited. It's doable, but it is one of the toughest grounds out there. So it's gonna take a big ask from Spurs to get through this one.
Yeah, I mean, coming over to you, Si, it does feel like for many out there that obviously proper Spurs fans, and everyone's a proper Spurs fan that listens to this, bless their heart, that it does feel like a bit of a make or break week. Many have described it as a crunch week in Spurs' season. It may define Ange Postecoglou's tenure. I think it's fair to say how big this week could be. How do you view it for you, Si? A semi-final against Liverpool. We go there, of course, with that slender advantage of a 1-goal lead. Obviously, George making the point there. We've got a couple of additions come through the door in Tell, in Danso to help boost and his options. We'll come on to Mickey shortly, because I know, again, that's been really the headlines about Mickey van der Ven and his non-availability for this one. But for you, Si, how are you feeling going to Anfield with that slender advantage, and by the fact that we know Anfield is always a tough venue? And look, we've seen some of the best teams go there, the likes of Real Madrid, Barcelona's with 3-0 leads, and they evaporate, and that's with their most available, strongest team. I still think when you look at it, Spurs are going to be about 9 first-team players going to Anfield. So we'll bring you inside, get you to unmute and give us your thoughts on, if Tottenham can do what many would describe as the impossible, go to Anfield and win and get to a final.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can't help but agree with a lot of things that George mentioned there. I think you have to look at it with, I like balance, I like context, I like to look at the big picture, and just looking at the two clubs and where they're coming from going into this game, the difference couldn't be starker. We have Liverpool, they sit on the top of the Premier League, top of their Champions League table. They have, I wrote some stuff down here. They got a full squad. Trent is the only one that isn't fit and ready to play that game. I think they won 5 out of the last 7 in January, so they are in form. And they only play Plymouth on Sunday, which means that they can go very strong and not have to worry about the Premier League, their next Premier League game. So, and they play at home with all that comes with that, as George mentioned. I mean, we are the underdogs. When I look at this team and look at what we've been through these last couple of months, I actually think we've performed our best when we met the best teams and when we've been under pressure to deliver. So, I mean, that's something. The other thing I would look at is that we've met them twice this year. One time we've set up in a disastrous way, and we lost 6-3. And we made corrections in that second leg. And we've now faced a lot of teams having been more pragmatic and conceding possession and defending deep and defending our box. And those are the things that I would look at. What lineup did we use? What can we learn from those two setups? If you look at how Liverpool set up in those two different games, they had Diaz, they had Seboslav, they had Robertson, they had Trent in the game that they won. And a lot of those players were not in the game that they lost. We played Madison. We had a much more attacking setup when we lost 6-3. We played much more conservative. We held our fullbacks back. Spence was on the pitch. They were trying to isolate Porro a lot on that right side through Gapco. I think there's a lot of things that Ange can look at and a lot of ways that he can tweak to kind of set us up in a better way. He will know what this game means for the Spurs community. He will know how important it is for Liverpool to go out there and show their fans that they are trying to win this game. And I think he will be realistic. And as he said in the presser today, he will want to win, and he will
Yeah.
do whatever it takes to win this game. And
Yeah.
so I do think there is hope, but I think it's reasonable to be balanced and to realize that we still go into this game as underdogs. And so if we win, that would be great. But it's about defending and being together and fighting through these 90 minutes.
Yeah, I agree.
Sure.
I think the one key word you use there, so which I totally agree on, that we're going to have to do is fight. I think, when you go to Anfield, any team that achieves a result there, it's through sheer hard work, determination, and real work ethic, in general. So, I mean, on that point, Dave, look, I think what we did see at Brentford that I was really impressed with the way the team kind of came together. And there was a lot, I felt, of leadership on the field that necessarily didn't have to translate from Ange on the bench, because I saw players really taking it upon themselves to step up and actually using a bit more know-how. We've actually said a lot of times on here, and I know you said on your channel, Dave, maybe there's been a lack of dark arts, a lack of maybe game management. I think what impressed me a lot at Brentford was that game management. The reality is that, look, I'm not sure if you can game manage it at Anfield for 90 minutes, but there'll definitely be facets of that game where we're going to need to be clever in terms of not only our approach, but how we do manage that game. And I think everybody knows, and for those that aren't aware, I think Anfield is one of those grounds where quite literally they do suck the ball into the opposition's net. So what do you need to see, Dave, in this game to give you the confidence that we can get a result there? Because Ange was asked, and we'll bring it into the show, about the maybe need to adapt. And I think, I think we have seen some tweaks from him recently. I think we have seen some adjustments. And you know what? I think Everton was a clear example of that. Yes, we didn't get the right result on the day. You only had 24 hours to prepare for that because, of course, we lost Solanke before that. I think you look at the Brentford game as a prime example. You'd say it was more Conte Mourinho ball than Ange ball. But I think at this stage where we are now, it is a case of results over style. But the second goal was still a brilliant teamwork goal, wasn't it? So what do you need to see, Dave, from your end to feel the confidence against Liverpool on, of course, Thursday?
Yeah, look, first of all, I think you've got to take into account the Anfield crowd, right? The fact it's a nighttime kickoff, it's a cup game, they're going to be lively. And I've been around the block long enough to watch Liverpool in cup games and see how much emotion is connected between the fans and the players on the evening to try and get the job done. And like you said, they almost sucked that ball into the net. So for me, I think the first 20 minutes of this game is going to be absolutely crucial and will dictate, how long Tottenham can go into the game holding on to this 1-0 lead. For me, I don't see the need to go out there and try and play them off the park. And I don't think we have the ability to either. I think naturally we're going to force back into a more of a counter-attacking sort of style, a bit like what we've seen against Brentford in the second half. I sort of looked at that second half with Kinski going along with the ball as well. And I'm sort of looking at it going, are we trying to implement something here ahead of the Liverpool game to see if we can do it? And I think that's exactly what we're going to see up against Liverpool, especially in the first half. You've got to try and quieten down that crowd, because when I have watched Liverpool, if they don't get joy inside the first 20, 30 minutes and you can stifle them, that crowd goes very, very quiet, and it's not spoken about enough.
Yeah, like that Forest game, Dave. That Forest game, a prime example. I totally agree. Forest, when they played Forest, they didn't get result. Totally agree. Please carry on. Sorry.
Yeah. No, exactly. And if we can get it to that point, I think that's where we go to then try and sucker punch them, try and capitalize on it. For me, I think it all really depends on Pedro Porro actually in this game. I think, this season he's been a bit of a liability. I'm not really too worried about Jed Spence. He's pocketed Mo Salah twice. In even that 6-3, I know it sounds crazy to say, but it's one of the quietest I've seen Mo Salah. And then he doubled down with it again in that 1-0 win at home. So for me, I think he'll be fine to try and help neutralise Mo Salah to a large degree. But I think it all depends on Pedro Porro. If I'm Arne Slot, knowing that Salah hasn't really got too much joy down that wing in both games, and without Trent being there to pull that ball back to whip the ball in, I'm actually sending a lot of my play down Pedro Porro's side, knowing how much of a liability he has sort of been defensively this season. And what they will do is they'll look to double and triple up. They'll get one player on the ball, one overlapping, one sitting back looking to get the ball into the box. And if he can stand up and, have a great game, not really cost us, a bit like what he did against Brentford, where he actually played more of a natural fullback role rather than your inverted fullback or getting up and getting on with play. I don't think he needs to do that this game. If we can just sit him back in there in the natural right back position, sort of old school if you'd like, let him defend, let him do his defensive duties, I think we've got a real opportunity.
Dave, he did that in the Liverpool game too, right? He did come back and handle Gakpo. That's why we won that first game. They tried to target him, but he was a little bit more further back. They did try that long ball over his head, but he did come back into position. So you're totally right. It's going to be key.
No, he did, and I just think he's going to be absolutely key. I just think that's the avenue Liverpool will look to use, especially early on. They are going to test Pedro Porro, and I think it's important that he stands up to that. And to be honest, I think the next crucial player for me, it's actually all about Rodrigo Bentancur. I think it's crucial that he sits in that number 6. When he plays, I just think we look so much better as a team. We look a lot more cohesive, and I think it looks a lot more like Kanja's system when he sits in there. Not only defensively does he get across to the left, to the right, cut out ball and allow the fullbacks to sit back in and get Tottenham back in shape and stop counterattacks. He also screens that back four very well. And in the last couple of games with Liverpool, it's been a very end-to-end nature. And both games, one of them he wasn't available for, and the second one he came off within the first couple of minutes. So he hasn't really had a chance to play against Liverpool. And I think he'll be absolutely crucial, especially in terms of in possession. I think it will help us hit Liverpool on the counter a little bit more frequently than what we're used to seeing, say, when Basuma or that are there. And I also hope that he can get us a little bit more possession and control possession in the game than what we have done in previous games against Liverpool. But it's a huge game. But this is all about hard work. Yeah. This is Tottenham's DNA. We do everything the hard way. Even the players that we've signed, you look at them now at Tottenham, a lot of them have had a hard journey here. Some of the youngsters that we're using, a lot of them have just been thrown in the deep end. We're used to this. We are used to this, and we've got to play on that, the hard work, the grind, the effort. And I think you'll find against a lot of top teams, they don't like that when you come up with them, show them a bit of doggedness, get in their face. And I think that's something that we can use to our advantage in this game.
Dave, absolutely. I think so much agreement with you on that point. And obviously, it's not easy for Tottenham. We described there the need for fighting. I think one player that obviously was a doubt going into the game, there's been so many rumours across social media in these last 24, 48 hours where worst fears have been realised. And that is the news that Ange Postecoglou has confirmed that Mickey van der Ven is out of this game against Liverpool, this second leg, and hasn't committed to a necessary time frame of Mickey's return. And Adwin pressed further on it, said, look, when he was asked about team news from availability from last week, everyone fine. Kevin, Matthias are both available and have trained. The rest with them, no one available for tomorrow. With Mickey and Romero to some extent, it's important that we bracket the two of these guys with Romero and Mickey. It's about being conservative with them. Mickey got through the first 45, but he feels he's not ready to step up to the Premier League, which is obviously a big shame, on the top of the fact that we've lost now Radu for the remainder of the season. For those that obviously aren't aware of that, again, bringing you up to date, Radu Dragusin is now also out for the remainder of the season. That news also breaking on deadline day. Andrew's at a pains to put out the point that he is insistent Mickey van der Ven has not re-injured himself with regards to the injury that he suffered, which led up to this point. And he said, look, it's a bit of everything when it comes to that discomfort. He got through the game, no problem. But having a look at his stats, the Premier League is a whole different beast. And after losing Radu, I thought what we had ahead of us, don't get me wrong, we know how big these games are coming up. Hopefully, we're in a final of a Carabao Cup. Hopefully, we're still in an FA Cup. I don't see a sense of us having to take this risk. Having Kevin available, Kevin Danso, is a massive bonus. And I just want to, again, be clear on this point. Mickey has not re-injured himself, but he feels the need to have more time. And that is the same with Christian Romero. I mean, look, let's make this point clear. George, it's not the news any of us wanted to hear. I think the concern for a lot of fans will be that there's no sign of a time frame with regards to either Mickey or Christian's return date of availability. How much is that a blow to be going to Anfield without Mickey van der Ven? And are you concerned by the fact we haven't really got a return date in mind for either at the moment?
I mean, listen, someone of Van der Ven's quality is always going to be missed in our team. I think he is what allows us to play this quote-unquote Ange ball, the high press, because look, his recovery pace is a joke and is probably the best in the league when it comes to defenders. So, look, it's definitely a big miss for sure. I will say, though, if that Brentford game was anything to go by, where we are going to be a little bit more defensive, a little bit more apprehensive, you could argue that recovery pace isn't necessarily as important, but there's no doubt that Van der Ven is one of the best defenders we have at the club. It's not just his speed at getting back, his tackling is brilliant as well. So that's going to be missed regardless. But this is where I think Danso becomes so important for us. And look, he's got incredible recovery as well. And he's a physical monster at the back. And I think look, we never want to see any sort of injuries the way that Dragoshin has just had. But the one thing of where Kevin Danso is going to be filling in Dragoshin's absence is that it's pretty telling in that 6-3 loss if Gravenberch is coming out saying that we're targeting Dragoshin in the games to get the goals. And that whole right side for us has been a bit of a problem with Dragoshin and Porro being taken on quite a lot in every game, and we concede a lot of goals at that back post. So we're seeing a lot of defensive frailties with those two on that side. And I think having Danso alongside probably a Davis or a Gray, depending on how we set up, I think it's going to help reassure us and reassure that defense, because look, he's got great recovery pace, like I said.
Yeah,
he's a physical monster, so you'd like to think it's going to be a lot more difficult to get past him. So that hopefully should help assist Porro in some ways. But look, he's not been there long. Hopefully, like the other new signings that's been thrown straight in, he's sort of just built on this adrenaline and confidence and has a good game. But yeah, I think with Van de Ven being out, I think Danso then becomes probably our most important defender, despite not playing in the exact same position as Van de Ven.
Yeah, I mean, George, I think it's really important you make that case there that we're obviously having someone of Danso's availability for this game. I think there will be also an element of concern. I think Danso's played for the last 3 weeks. I think it'll be 4 by the time Liverpool game comes around, but it does give Tottenham a fresher option they didn't have a week or so ago. Yep. But in tandem with that, they then lose Radu Dragoshin. I mean, Si, I know you've been very much I know you can't quite believe what you've been seeing with regards to the injuries. I mean, I've seen you on X saying, even for you, of being someone of a positive nature, I think even you, it's been quite testing. I mean, we get one back, we drop another one. I mean, I'm sure you won't get away from the fact how big a blow it is to not have Mickey Van de Ven available for this game. I think, as George says there, he's absolutely pivotal away, and Postecoglou wants to play. You could argue that with Mickey not being available, there may need to be a slight change again, an adaptation to how we approach it. Are you confident, side, with the other options we've got available? And again, I think we've got to make that point. Jed Spence has been phenomenal for Tottenham this season, as has Archie Gray. I mean, Archie Gray has been a real unsung hero for Tottenham in terms of the work he's done defensively. And obviously with Radu being out, Danso potentially coming in, how much of a blow is not having Mickey? Is that a silly question to ask you, Si? We know how important he is for the team, Mickey Van de Ven.
It's incredibly important, but in some ways I do feel like this, as George mentioned, this is a game where missing Dragoshin is almost a bigger deal, because I do think there's a couple of areas in this, tactical areas in this game, where Dragoshin's height, his strength was something that was really preferable, something you wanted in a game where you're probably going to have to box defend, when it's going to come, when you're going to see a lot of crosses come in. And he was really good in that Liverpool game. People forget he clearance on the goal line. He did help Porro a lot when he had to defend those long crosses. Look, the way I look at this game, there's a couple of areas that because I rewatched the 2 Liverpool games just to get a sense of what we were up against this game. And
that's commitment, isn't it, for a Last Word on Spurs show to go watch them back? What commitment that is, Si.
Everything for you, Ricky. You know that. so there's 5
Love you very much.
And we've mentioned some of these things. So first and foremost is the fullbacks. And as Dave said, we got Spence on Salah. I'm not that worried about that. I think he's up for that fight. He said it today. Again, he come out with some amazing quotes talking about backing himself against anyone. So I feel really good about that. And he did pocket Salah in that game. And he did pocket Bueno. And I do really like his athleticism. And he helps us cover some of what Van der Ven gives us, which is that speed and that 1v1 ability. On the other side, we got Porro. And both when it comes to defending, they're going to target Porro. They're going to try to get behind him. And if he's on it the way he was against Liverpool, against Brentford, as Dave mentioned, that's good. But also, Porro had that pass to Solanke that gave us that offside goal. Porro was the one that delivered that amazing pass to Solanke for the goal that won us the game. So him being able to play those direct balls when we're under pressure really helps us. So the fullbacks are really key here. Then you come to the build-up. When you come into this game thinking that we're not going to have as much as of the ball as we usually do, you can't only defend deep. You have to be able to keep the ball and build up. And so having players like Kinski, if he's the one who's going to play, I hope that he is, because as Dave again mentioned, he has that long ability on the ball that helps us keep the ball. Then you have Bentancur, Bissouma. Is Gray going to play, or is Davies going to play? Because we need to be able to keep the ball to kind of relieve the pressure we're going to be under, and to get off these counterattacks that are going to at least give those central defenders of Liverpool something to think about, to kind of, again, ease the pressure off of us.
Yeah.
And when it comes to those direct balls, you need to win second balls. And this is where I think the midfield is really important.
Yep.
What we did in that game where we won, we had three big midfielders. We had Bissouma, Bentancur, and Berival. So we basically had a workman's midfield. And I think that's important. I think having Maddison in that first game kind of left us left big spaces in the midfield, which they expanded, which they exploited, and that's how they scored a lot of those goals. We were so easy to play through. So that's the fourth key. And then the fifth is box defending, which I kind of mentioned in my response earlier, which is Danso. He's big, he's really strong in the air. Yeah. Box defending is something he's done a lot at Lens. He's good 1v1 defender, and he's really quick, and he's really aggressive. So I think if we can get those things right, we should have be able to kind of cover for the players we've missed. And I mean, Tell, is he going to play striker? Is he going to play on the right wing? I think on the right wing, but there's a case to be made for him playing at striker and then having Kulusevski out wide. Let's see. Yeah. What he does give us is speed in behind. He can hold up the ball. He can play like Solanke did when we scored those two goals, even if one was offside. And so I do think he's going to play as well, because he has something that a lot of our players don't have, which is he's got some fitness in him. He hasn't played a lot of games. He can actually run and press and work hard, and we need that.
On Tell quickly, if you don't mind me, because just as you guys were speaking there, it kind of had like the thoughts sort of running through my mind there. Earlier today, I tweeted like sort of like my predicted lineup, and I did put Tell striker, but as we were sort of discussing what happened during the Brentford game and how important the fullback is going to be in defending, I actually think Tell now will probably play right wing, because what I noticed in that Brentford game is that Porro wasn't getting forward as much because he kind of didn't need to, because it was Mikey Moore that was in front of him, especially for that first half. So yeah, and we all know what Mikey Moore is. It's sort of like a 1v1. He wants to take on defenders, so he starts out wide and wants to take the defenders on, which. Whereas usually, if we've had to play Kulusevski out wide or Johnson out wide, especially with Kulusevski's case, he loves to obviously drift in through the middle, which means a lot of the times Porro is joining him and overlapping and trying to get the crosses in himself, which leaves him massively exposed. He didn't need to do that because Moore was the one that was trying to go at the defenders. And I think we're going to need someone like Tell in that position where Porro's not as relied on to be able to do these overlaps to get the crossing in, because Tell can pretty much do all of that as well. So I think, if I'm being honest, I think I see him playing right wing tomorrow.
It's an interesting one, isn't it, how they will stage that? I mean, Deacon, over to you, I've got to ask you as well, Dave, with regards to Van der Ven and being how much of a blow that will be. We didn't nearly broke into discussion about the goalkeepers, and I want to ask you as well, I'll let you tie it in with that. Would you be tempted, along with your answer you'll give me on Van der Ven and how much of a miss he is, to maybe bring Vicario back in? Because we are understanding that there is some slight murmurs. Vicario has been working heavily behind the scenes to maybe be back for this second leg. It's quite funny. There wasn't a huge amount of talk about him in the presser actually earlier today, which again, and maybe he's keeping that one a little bit close to his chest. Look, the blow of Van der Ven, of course, is a massive one. But what we understand behind the scenes is that Vicario is very much a leader, and some of the clubs see as a real aspirational captain, which is why, again, he was included in that, obviously, captaincy group only recently. Kinski, I think, has done okay. I think he's done probably more than okay. I think he's been fairly good, apart from, I think, one error that we saw at the Emirates, and there was that one at Leicester you might, again, mark him down on. What would you do, Dave, in terms of the goalkeeping situation? Also, how much of a blow for you is Vicario? How much of a blow is Van der Ven being out and not having a definitive time frame on that?
Do you know what? For me, between the goalkeepers, I think it's a tough one and what trade-off you're willing to make. I think with Vicario, he's very suspect from set pieces, which then opens it up for Liverpool to put that in on top of him with the likes of Van Dijk, Konate steaming in. That's not a sight I want to see tomorrow. But then with Kinski, you mentioned it, in the high-pressure game in the North London Derby, made a mistake for Trossard's goal. I'd argue against Leicester. That ball that came across, he can use his hands. He should have claimed that. And then the second one, I think the shot, if Vicario's in the net, he probably saves it. I do think Vicario is a much better shot stopper. And they're both good with their feet. So I think it really depends on what sort of trade-off they want to make. If I'm going back and looking at that Brentford game, I actually think the outfield players dealt with set pieces very, very well. There's very few that Kinski actually had to come and claim. And we are getting better at defending set pieces. So I think if Vicario is available, because he is a leader in that leadership group, I think you've got to lean on that tomorrow night. And I think you've got to bring him into the fold. In terms of centre-backs, look, I know everyone wants to see Kevin Danso tomorrow because he's a new signing and stuff like that. But you also have to take into account squad dynamics. If Postecoglou was to drop out Archie Gray or Benjamin Davies tomorrow, I don't think it sends a good message to them in the future. And I think, almost to a degree, he loses them and has to try and get them back on side. I think he should stick with what's got him this far so far. I think he should stick with Archie Gray at right-sided centre-back. I think he's been absolutely brilliant. I think he's played centre-back better than Radu Dragusin. And I also think Ben Davies, we've seen how much of a warrior he's been in the last, couple of games on his return. So I think he should stick with that partnership and look to bring Danso in. And I think he will. When you look at his words in the pre-match press conference, he said Gray, Pedro Porro and Davies, yes, they've played a lot of minutes and stuff like that, but they're cut out for it. So that makes me think that then they are going to start at centre-back tomorrow. And then he mentioned about having another game against Villa 3 days later, and that's where I think you'll actually see Danso come in.
It's interesting what they are going to do. There's a number of obviously different decisions that Andrew's got to make there in regards to the team, and there's no doubt about it. I think there will be an intrigue from Tottenham fans. I think we would love to obviously see Tell play from the start. And I think Danso, you feel maybe his hand, Dave, to some degree might be forced by the loss of Dragusin being there and the fact that maybe he would want a natural centre-back. But I totally understand your point there that the likes of Davies and Gray, I think Gray's just undroppable now, isn't he? I mean, Gray has been so good for Tottenham since really he's come into the side. He's played every position but the one he wants to play. And then Davies, it's a game where you do need calm heads. And I think Davies is a fairly calm head. Again, though, he probably won't have to play on the same side as Salah does play. But I think many would remember, a couple of years ago at Anfield, where he got absolutely torn to pieces by Salah. The difference would be, obviously, that Ben would have to be playing as a centre-half rather than playing as a left-back. So there's really big decisions for Ange Postecoglou to make. What we are going to do, look, we're going to squeeze in our first break of the show for our listeners and audio. During that break, some will like this, some won't like this. We've got Johan Lang, who's giving you an update on the January transfer window wrap-up. So you're going to hear that for our listeners on audio. We'll give you a flavour very quickly of what we've got on that. I must say, there's nearly over 5,000 of you watching the show live, as always. Thanks so much for all your incredible support for Last Word on Spurs. We're joined by George Achillea. Make sure you check him out across the socials, George Achillea. We're joined by the wonderful Simon Yemane. Make sure, for your own health and safety, you'll make sure you're following Si on X, who will give you, I think for a lot of us out there, a pick-me-up whenever you need one. I would be strongly advising you to go and check it before kick-off. I'm not even sure Si might have the stomach after the game, depending on what happens, but make sure you do go and check him out. We've got the wonderful Dave at the Irish Hotspur. Dave will be giving you a watch-along and more for this game, as he always does for every game during the course of this season. And again, we'll encourage you guys, keep liking, keep subscribing. It's out to a massive Spurs-wide audience. Right, so Johan Lang has been speaking about the transfer window, and this is for obviously our watching audience here. For those, you'll get it on the audio, so you won't hear me saying this. You'll hear Johan directly, so you've got Johan's voice rather than my voice, just because that's one AI robot going on there. That's confusing for you. Johan Lang has said, from his perspective, that he understands and sympathises with fans with regards to the timing of some of the moves, but simply made it clear that it wouldn't have been possible to bring in maybe the likes of Tell and of Danso earlier than at the time. He said we signed a new goalkeeper, a new centre-back, a new forward. So overall, we are very satisfied with that. He, again, insisted it was a fair question to ask why business couldn't have been done earlier. But he said, look, from our perspective, we were ready to do business on the 1st of January, but it's just not as easy as that. Land cited the change in the format of the UEFA competitions as part of what has made an already slow-moving window even more tedious across Europe this season. But look, the reality is Spurs did get, when you look at it, a new goalkeeper, a new centre-back, a new forward. But I think there will be some out there coming over to UG that will feel that it's tricky. I think you don't get Tell if you go in on the 1st of Jan. I think you have to, again, as you've seen, it took Postecoglou to convince him to come. We'll come on to that in just a second. But the reality is there'll be many that do feel out there that in the space of seeing these guys coming in, our league form has very much kind of deteriorised during that period. I honestly think for me, I think if you have the likes of Danso in, Tell in, I think the argument would be you probably don't lose at home. You probably don't lose at home to Leicester. I think you probably go get something against Everton. Is it a fair assumption, George, that if we bring these players in earlier, we could have maybe rescued the league, or do you think at the moment it wouldn't have made a massive difference? You're looking at 4 or 5 points there. It is what it is in terms of that league form. Nothing would have changed had you brought those players in earlier.
Oh no, I think it definitely would have changed if you brought them in earlier, because we saw how difficult it was defending for the last few weeks when you had to play the same players 90 minutes week in, week out. So definitely, it would have helped having them in earlier. I don't buy the whole, like the likes of Danso can have been done early in the window and so on and so forth. I get this notion of things are difficult. Someone like Tell, I get, because at the end of the day, this is one of the most sought after teenagers in Europe. Secondly, no one even knew he was available until about a week ago, until he announced he wanted to leave Bayern Munich.
Yeah.
So I think the Tell deal is like a complete anomaly, right? I think that's not like the usual when it comes to it. You couldn't say that we entered the window targeting Tell. I don't think that's the case at all, because he made himself available. Then all the big clubs started sniffing around him. I think that one was always going to be towards the end of the window, and I don't have any gripes with that. The ones with the likes of Danso, though, I don't buy the idea that it takes that long, because look, we got Kinski over the line early because we needed a goalkeeper. It was urgent. We were going to get him in the summer. We needed him earlier because Vicario was out for a long time. We managed to get that done. It took until Dragishin's ACL tear for us to really accelerate the centre-back situation. There is no doubt in my mind that we could have got Danso in earlier in the window. So I think everyone has the right to be frustrated, and it's at the speed at some of the deals. Like I said, I don't think Tell was one of them, but the other ones definitely. And if we did manage to get Danso in earlier in the window as well, that probably would have helped us get that second centre back that we were looking for. Yeah. Unfortunately, we kind of left it a little bit too late, especially with trying to get the Tell deal done over the line on deadline day. I just don't think there was that room to be able to get that second centre back that we were after. So it's one of those ones where we'll probably look back in a couple of years and say, actually, that was a pretty good window in the sense of the quality of the players. And I mean, not many other teams apart from City signed 3 players in January. And again, as well, comparing yourselves to other clubs saying, oh, like Arsenal didn't bring anyone in, Man United couldn't really do much. They brought in a left wing back and a couple of youth players. These are teams that are supposedly struggling with PSR and whatnot, and can't and physically can't bring players in until they sell theirs. The only other team that doesn't seem to be having PSR issues managed to bring in about 6 players for £250 million, which is Man City. And obviously, I know Man City is a sort of different beast in terms of their checkbook, but it's about the will to do it rather than they can't do it. It felt like, to me, a lot of what we were hearing is, January was tough. We can't do this. It's really difficult. Yeah, I think it was more the will to get some of these over the line, especially with someone like Danso, who realistically no one had on their target list for the whole of the window. That's a deal that could have been done so much earlier.
Yeah, and listen, I think someone comes in there saying I've got a cheek man about time and giving my time, and I totally agree on that point. Listen, the only difference is I'm not working for the football club to try and bring players in. My argument is I'm here trying to dish out some therapy for you all. So listen, bless your hearts for that. And I wish if you were to tell me that if my timing improves, that would mean Tottenham's timing improves. God, I think I'd be here 15, 20 minutes early. Sorry, boys, that sounds like a really bad advocate for how I'm treating this show, but I will try and be here much earlier moving forward, but everyone knows that's a lie, so I can't promise and commit to that. Dave, will I come around you on this point? Look, I think George makes valid points there in regards to how quicker we could have moved during the window. I think for many out there, I think the frustration would have been, I think John at Lee White Rose, friend of the show, put it so well. We went into those kind of last 24, 48 hours, and this will be for UK listeners only to maybe get this metaphor. We went to like the yellow label aisle in Tesco's and we're shopping for Chelsea's rejects. I mean, it was the most bizarre situation where we were just kind of seeing what's left on the shelf, and there was kind of this insistence to keep going for Disassi. I think that now becomes a bit more, can I use the word logical, even though I don't think it fits the system. It becomes a bit more understanding if you're looking just for a body, given that we have got these serious doubts as to when Romero and Mickey van der Ven are going to return to the squad. And by the fact they were trying to get, as we know, Mark Gahey in on the final day, thinking that, again, you get him. I just think Palace were never going to sell their centre-back on the final day without having some sort of a replacement. Yes, there's an argument that if Palace were to sell him now for a higher premium, it would mean that in the summer they wouldn't be able to get the fee that maybe they would have got on the final day of the January window. But how do you assess, if you can assess, the words from Johan Langer there, Dave? Because there's a lot of, I think, scrutiny as to whether he is the right man for his role, given that I think a lot of fans are kind of imploring the long-term return of Parategy, who seem to have a little bit more, how do I put this politely, maybe know-how in getting some more of those experienced players, Dave, in the window. Is that fair?
No, 100%. I think it's fair. Look, when it comes to Johan Langer and his quotes, I mean, it's a good narrative to paint if you want to ignore how many times we were turned down this window. It's surprisingly, he hasn't spoke about that, right? And if we weren't turned down, we wouldn't have left it so late in the window. So I think it's a convenient PR spin by Johan Lang, if you want me to be quite blunt and frank about it. You know, Kolo Muani turned us down. If he didn't, we wouldn't be sitting here last deadline day looking for to bring in Jonathan Tell. You know, I think other defenders have turned us down, which means we wouldn't be sitting so late in the deadline day or late in the window looking to bring in Danso. So for me, I think it's a very convenient PR spin from Johan Lang to cover up what he didn't do. But look, coming out of the market, I just feel like it's been a huge opportunity missed from Tottenham Hotspur. I feel like, you know, we could have really attacked this with gusto. We could have went at it with a bit more money and really tried to pursue players that we wanted to try and get in the door. I can understand from a player's point of view, especially if you're a big player on the market, why you would wait to the last day to see what opportunities come up. But that's for your own benefit. But from a Tottenham benefit, we should have been out there in that market acting a lot more aggressively than what we were. And I just worry that we made the same mistake as the summer again coming out of it, that, you know, we haven't bought for the here and now, that again, we've sort of bought potential, and will it come back to bite us? Will it help us meet our ambitions? Look, only time will tell, but I don't buy that PR spin from Johan Lang. I think it's easy to spin.
I've also got to check with you, Dave, just to be clear. We haven't signed another player called Jonathan Tell, have we, along with Matthias Tell, just to be clear.
I'm a sorry.
No, don't apologise. I thought, have we got another player there that we don't know about, Dave, that you're breaking to us? Have we got, just to be clear,
we signed his younger cousin with all the other youngsters we signed.
Is that the big surprise ahead of Thursday? Is that the big surprise?
But look, when it comes to Parateaching, I think, you know, this is something that Tottenham really have to weigh up, you know, come the summer. What do you want? I think Parateaching, when you look at what he's done at the football club, not only was he instrumental in changing Tottenham's philosophy when it comes to the academy, keeping a lot of the academy players, also building the data scouting network. He brought from all across the world, but he also brought players in for the here and now. He done all sides of the job. Whereas Johan Lang, I agree with you, I just don't think he has the know-how. When he goes into negotiations, like it's out there in various articles and that he doesn't like leaks getting out. So if you're a selling club, you sort of automatically know when he's coming to you, he's got absolutely nothing else lined up in the market, which means it's all on them. They can say, give us this money or go home empty-handed. You know, it's supply and demand. It's simple. But Paratici was notorious for using the press, using agents and spinning templates at once and negotiating with different clubs. And I understand it was frustrating from Tottenham fans because there was different rumours coming left, right and centre. But it did allow him to pull in players of a certain calibre that have been turning us down recently, you know, in the January transfer window and stuff, because he had all the negotiating power. And that's where I think Johan Lang lets himself down to a large degree, because if a club tried to extort Tottenham, he could literally just turn around and say, that's grand, I've got 4 of the players lined up. Let's go over and negotiate which one do we want. You know, and automatically you force the selling club's hands where they go, hang on, we need that money. We want to get other players in. Let's negotiate. It's okay. Yeah. We'll come down to a price that's suitable. And I think that's the biggest difference between Johan Lang and Don Paratici. And I think we need to get him back here and do all we can. Let's not forget, Daniel Levy apparently admired this man for a long, long time. So I do hope he can get him back in here in July, because do you know what, Ricky? I sort of had an epiphany the other day. Well, I think it's an epiphany anyway, that under Pochettino, things were going well. But then Steve Hitchen arrived at the football club. Under his recruitment, there was a lot of Levy out. There was a lot of unsettled and disgruntled fans. When Paratici came in, to a large degree, he sort of started alleviating that a little because we were signing better players and stuff like that. But now you got Johan Lange in and we're missing the mark in the window altogether. All of a sudden, all the noise around Tottenham Hotspur is back again. And I do think if I'm Daniel Levy, you've got to have the right director of football in there, because if you do, he does the right business and it takes a lot of the attention off him. And I think if he persists with Johan Lang, I think this all the scrutiny around Daniel Levy is going to persist, going forward. So I think it'd be wise if I'm Daniel Levy to get him out of the club and get Paratici when he gets back.
Yeah, what's mad as well, though? Sorry, just to interject. I think we kind of need a fusion of the two in a way, and it would never happen. You can never have both. And I think, if I'm being completely honest, I think I would lean towards Paratici myself as well. I will give some flowers to Johan Lang, though, that he is much better at selling players, getting rid of the dead wood, and he's good at bringing the youngsters. Yeah,
you can't. He's got Graham Bergvall. We can't forget that, G.
Which is what he did at Villa. But then, almost to his detriment, supposedly he kind of got demoted at Villa to only focus on the academy. Yeah. So I think that's where you can kind of see his shortcomings there. Where, and let's be fair, Paratici also brought in young players. He brought in the Sarr, Udogie, and so on and so forth. It's not that he can't. But he notoriously was known for being terrible at getting rid of the players at the right price. So we kind of need a mix of both. But you're 100% right about the not really using leverage that well in the window. And I think you could see that throughout the whole of January. Really, it's like a bit of a mess.
I also don't mean to be rude, but there's a say about Paratici coming over to you, Simon. There's a certain way he holds himself in just the public domain that you can tell this guy. And it's no respect to Johan Lang when I say this. There's something about Paratici, you can kind of tell that you're dealing with someone in the presence that has been around for a very, very long time. A man that paces up and down. He was pacing up and down the walls at Hotspur Way with those famous headphones being in. And I think it's somewhat ironic side to say this to him. Ali, God bless him, I think Ali said this as well, that we use that word irony. It was actually Postecoglou to be the man that in the end really saved the final signing of Tottenham's window, because from what we understand, just to be clear, he was the one they got on the phone to tell and really sold him the project. And this is actually 3 or 4 days after Daniel Levy flew out to Munich. And I'm not sure if many saw the report out there that was doing the rounds that Levy flew to Munich last week because Johan Langer feared that his meeting presentation with Tell didn't have the desired impact. After meeting with Tell communicated that he wasn't going to Tottenham. It was about as much as showing that he wouldn't be forced into something by Bayern as it was about not being convinced by Spurs. Sunday evening, and Postecoglou then speaks with Tell over the phone. Postecoglou puts forward how he planned to use Tell, expressed how much he valued Tell's versatility and speed, and expressed that he thought Tell could torment Premier League defences with his quality. It was a concrete speech, and it was a number of scored points that for Tell appreciated there being a real emphasis and focus on the plans for him on the pitch, as opposed to maybe being pitched the project that the management tried to steer his way. And again, that's a report that's just come out there. How validated that is, I'm not sure. But by the Monday morning, the player decided he was going to Tottenham. And it was, again, Dan, you've got to say to Ange Postecoglou, not for the first time, that has spoke to a player, communicated to them how much they would be required and how much they'd be needed. And here we are, the players at Tottenham. So what do you make of the role Johan Langer played in this window, Si? And how much credit do you think has to go to Ange Postecoglou more than maybe the current structure and setup in terms of, I use that word, the transfer team or the technical team in getting these deals over the line? Because Ange, again, has kind of got his man. It sounds like it's down to Ange's work, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think both these guys put out really nice arguments for both Paratici and Lange. I was actually going to push back a little bit on what Irish was saying, or Dave, as he likes to be used by his friends. I think Paratici was someone that had a lot more power compared to Lange. We have to remember he had a different role. He was basically Munn and Lange in one. So he sat on the board. He had a lot more accessibility. Like, he had a lot more ability to kind of pressure. And from we understand it from reports, he was in the boardroom screaming and shouting and fighting for transfers and fighting for coach.
He was even on the bench at one point, so I got to say sorry. He was even on the bench at one point.
Passionate football guy who was in there and had the contacts and he had the ambition that matched what we as fans wanted. And I think we felt that. We saw him. It was visible. He was out there pacing on the pitch with his earphones, and we kind of felt that we had a football man at the club. Now, I don't think I actually like Lange's ability to identify talent, and I like his data approach. And I think if you look at the data approach, it's been much more, the hit rate has a little bit better on the Lange. If you look at it through the lens of Van der Ven, Vicario, Berival, Gray, Tel, Danso, I mean, the hit rate has been really high. And
Van der Ven and Vicario are under Paratici and Gabbanini, not under Johan Lang.
Exactly, but it was still data. They switched the data approach in that summer, and so it was much more. I like the hit rate. Whilst if you look at Paratici, we had the Golinis, the Lengles, the Emersons. We had a couple of bad loans. We had a hard time selling, so he wasn't perfect. So as George pointed out, a mix between the two is kind of what you want. You want this data approach. We have right now. We have to give Paratici credit for building the structure. But again, I feel like Mun is the forgotten piece out here. Because what does he do? Like, who's in the boardroom, speaking for the football operations? Because I think, like, sometimes we have to remember what Lange does is that he has a brief and he has a budget. He doesn't set the wage bill. What he has is the limitations we put on him.
Yeah. Yep.
So what's hard about the January transfer is money. It's easy. Money, money, money. It's a rich man's game. And if you don't have a budget, you basically can only make loans. Then it becomes hard. Then you have to wait. And our inability to be flexible, to see that we have a lot of injuries, we made mistakes in the summer, and then make a plan and execute it the way Man City did. And you don't have to have the money they spent, but us not being willing to kind of forget the accounting for a moment and just look at the cups we had coming up and just making that extra effort, pushing a little bit more money, because we have the ability, we have the cash, we have the PSR. That's the issue. It's the limitations we put on ourselves and we put on the people we employ, Lange and McKenzie and Ange. And we don't budge. Whatever happens, we don't budge. We look at the Excel, sheet, and we say, no, this is the budget, this is the plan, and we're too conservative because the football doesn't come first. And I think that's the issue. So while I do acknowledge, and I've been really frustrated with this window and the speed of it and the window this summer, my view is that the issue goes beyond Lange, basically. Because the players that did come in, Danso, Tel, Kinski, they're good players. The players who did come in this summer, good players. It's just too little and often too late.
Yeah,
and I think that goes beyond. It's the ownership. It's the people in charge. Yeah. And we know that because we've seen it over and over and over again. So that's just my system.
Can I just come in on that and just respond? I think, look, I understand Simon's point about the constraints. Paratici also worked under the same constraints, and he had a lot tougher job. He had no leeway. He had players on severely high wages that he had to try and get off the books, which is not easy to do, while also trying to bring players in and rebuild this. Johan Lang came in with a clean slate. All he had to do was add players to it. It's a much easier job.
No. Let's remember, he sold 13 players in 8 months between January and August.
But Paratici had already done most of the work.
2 years, he sold 6 players. All he did was loan out players. And I'm not making it in a competition. What I'm saying is, I like Paratici because he fought and he had the context to make those structures. But he also had more power. We have to remember he had Mun's power. He had budgetary power. He could see it in the boardroom and fight for stuff. But I'm saying Lage doesn't have that same amount of power. And I just think it's fair to acknowledge that. That's all.
No, look, I get what you're saying, but you also have to understand the players that we let go under Johan Lang, Paratici already done a lot of the legwork, by loaning them out, into the market, getting, with the resale value and stuff like that. Paratici already done a lot of the legwork, and he already got rid of a lot of players on high wages and stuff like that. He had a much more difficult job than Johan Lang. Johan Lang walked in here where the squad was heading in the right direction, and all he had to really do was add to it. And he's failed to do that properly over recent transfer windows. And, with Steve Hitchen and this guy, Johan Lang, everyone talks about budgets. When Paratici was in the job, I never once heard about budgets because he knew how to operate. And I get what you're saying. Paratici had more power than Johan Lang. That's because the man he is. That's because he commands that.
He had a different role. He had a specifically different role. He sat
but it's
on
all
the
about
board.
how you command. It's all about how you act, though. Like Johan Lang can't be sitting in the club just being quiet and silent and going, "Yes, no problem." You've got to fight for it.
Where I think though, Dave, I think I do agree with Simon. I think the problem is that I think Johan Langer, in my opinion, is working in a more inferior role than what Paratici was. Back to your point, what you say there, Dave, is because of the difference between the two men. I think it's so important we make that point.
And I agree with that.
And I agree with you both. I mean, the reality is that I think when you're looking at someone like Paratici, that I do agree there was a lot more leeway room there, Dave, because they trust him a lot more because of his reputation, because of his experience, because I think you said in your previous answer, Dave, as well, Daniel Levy had tracked this man for many, many, many years. I think with Johan Lang, it does feel back to George's point. He's been very good in terms of bringing a lot of the younger players through. But, I mean, there's been reports that Villa held a party when he left. But Villa fans, just be clear, Villa fans held a party, not Villa held a party directly, because the reality is that he didn't bring in enough senior players to convince them over time that he could be there long enough. So I think you're both right in your ways there. And I think, again, just to give you guys a final part on that point there, I'll let you come back inside and I'll let Dave finish off on this point. Go for it, Si.
No, I was just going to say, Scott Munn is what I'm saying is when I see Lange out and I don't see Scott Munn being mentioned.
Yeah, I agree. There's no mention of Scott Munn.
Of the football operations, who is in those rooms to kind of set the budget and to kind of set the direction of everything below. Let's spread it around a little bit more. What I'm saying is, I think Lange, because we have to remember, Kane left, Dyer, Højbjerg,
Lloris.
The amount of players he had to kind of move out and get in, he had a lot of work to do, and I think he did that well. Whilst I do agree that clearly he's not Paratici when it comes to having the context with the agents, the clubs, the ability to convince players to come there, the ability to structure deals in these odd, amazing ways that allowed us to get Kulusevski, to get Bentancur, to pay for Romero in some kind of weird way over. All that is something Lange doesn't have. And then I wonder, where's Munn? Where are these other?
It's funny, isn't it? Munn has escaped a lot of criticism, isn't he? Munn, I mean, to be fair, you don't really hear Scott Munn's name being mentioned at all with regards to when it's obviously someone getting a flack. Everyone's saying Paratici, would never have had this situation. Johan Langer's, exactly,
because Munn and Lange, they split Paratici's job in two, and maybe Scott and Munn, and that's where I'm coming from.
I hear you. I mean,
add balance to the criticism.
Yeah. I think that's the point, isn't it, Dave? Coming over to you, let you close on this point. I think this will be a lot of the questions fans are asking. Well, what does Scott Munn do? I mean, again, Scott Munn, we understand he took a huge responsibility in appointing Ange Postecoglou. Again, as rightly what Simon says there, he is the head of the football operations, but it does feel no one really holds Scott Munn to any account with regards to what's transpired over this window and really since the appointment of Ange Postecoglou either. Is that fair, Dave? Letting you come back on this point to close?
Yeah, look, it's a fair point to make, but Scott Munn isn't out there negotiating deals. His job is over all football operations, academy, senior team, and the women's side of the game. It's not just one facet. He's over everything. He's not out there negotiating deals. Johan Lang is, and that's why.
But why? Because that was Paratici's job. That's what I'm saying. Paratici also was head of all football.
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying, though, Simon. Paratici done everything. You have to split up the jobs. You can give Munn the excuse for not being able to negotiate and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, if he can't do it properly, what's he in the job for? Paratici is twice what Johan Lang is. Paratici comes with a reputation. He comes with a know-how. He comes with business contacts. What does Johan Lang come with? And that's what I'm saying. Paratici commands that. Johan Lang doesn't. And that's the difference of the caliber of the man that we're dealing with in the position.
Mm-hmm. I also think that I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Gabbanini.
Yeah, he left once it all changed, didn't it? Because he sort of was he sort of was like almost the understudy to Paratici in a way, because he was like the head.
And they decided to move him on.
Recruiter, so to
Yeah,
speak,
he did a
and
great
moved him on.
job in
Which I
that
think that was
summer
a big
when
mistake as well, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, like I say, it's such a multifaceted issue, Jules. I'll let you come on this point as well, Jules. That the reality is that none of us know what really goes behind the walls at Hotspur Way. But the reality is that it does feel that when you're looking at the nature of how we moved in that final week of the window, and I think it goes back to what Dave said at the start, and I think Simon has also said it in his answers. You know, we've had players that have outright rejected us that we've then gone back in for. And look, whilst I'm glad Tel is here and hopefully he'll be a superstar for us, that I think also we mustn't forget our standards as a football club. You know, we should have some kind of heritage about us and the glory that we are going into a semi-final here. We are Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. You know, it's quite a sad situation right now where, again, we're going back on the same points with relation to, you know, again, players that reject us to go back in for them. I mean, is that something, George, you'd like to see? Definitely there needs to be some kind of evaluation as how we approach this window. Is that fair, George? There needs to be some kind of, I think in any job you do or any kind of, you know, report that you do or any kind of real task you undertake, there's an evaluation of what went right, what went wrong, how we're going to learn from this. And again, if you look at and hear a lot of Spurs fans across social media, I think they're baffled by the way in which we've approached certain aspects of the window. No, it's not easy to bring players in, but at the same time, it's the nature of how the window's panned out, right, George?
Yeah, a little bit. I think, look, listen, the football side of it helps, is a big factor as well, because at the end of the day, when we were starting to look for players, we were 15th, 16th. And I think on the face of it, it's going to be a lot more difficult to persuade. If it's not Ange doing the persuasion, it's going to be a lot more difficult to persuade some of the players to come. So you can understand why there were some rejections, especially if there were other clubs like a Liverpool, for example, or whatnot, that might be interested in the same player. It's going to be difficult for us to do that deal. What I don't like and what I personally think needs improving is, for me, it just constantly feels like at the moment we're being reactive rather than proactive.
Yep.
Kinski came in early because Vicario got injured. Danso came in a lot later than he probably should have done, only because Radu went down, and then now supposedly Van der Ven's had this setback, so we had to scramble. And apparently, I think Paul was saying we were looking at 8 centre backs.
Yeah, 8 centre backs across January. Yeah, that's right.
But to me, that seems like a massive scramble, which should not be happening at a club like Spurs, where we have the buying power. We supposedly could have spent. Obviously, we don't know the real figures or whatever.
But the PSR tells us we could have spent around 190 million, according to Stefan Borson from TalkSport.
Exactly. So there definitely was leeway in terms of what we could spend. Again, I think it all comes back to the willingness to do it. So for me, I think they've got to look back at this and see how can we be a lot more proactive when it comes to the summer.
Yeah.
There needs to be, look, if Ange is still there in the job, then he needs to be a big conversation with him of like, what's your honest assessment of the squad? What do we need now? And they need to start looking from now to get ready for the summer. And again, you're not necessarily going to get all your targets within the first couple of weeks in the summer. That's impossible, especially now we're sort of wanting to be in that market of top players. I just want to see a lot more proactivity from the sort of recruitment rather than reactivity.
Yeah, and my point goes to that, because that's what I'm saying in the Paratici and with Conte. Conte's whole rant was about him not getting what he needed, and Paratici had those exactly like Dave rightly point out. He made the best he could, and he was effective in making these deals. But my frustration is this view from the club that you can just set a budget and you can have this plan and not realize that it's football. Players get injured. You can't do the bare minimum and have as a strategy to rely on luck. And then when you have bad luck, not react to it. I feel like that's the systemic issue that we have.
100%.
And then we can have discussion about Lange and Paratici and who's more effective and what they did good and what we, but they both had the same struggles, and I don't feel like it's that hard. You shouldn't have a wage bill on 42% or whatever when every other club has 55%, because that we shouldn't have a budget where we can only loan players when we have cash, when we have PSR space, when we have room in our wage bill to do more. We are putting limitations on the people working at the club that are so unnecessary, and not even react to it when it goes wrong is what I feel like my focus on, at least. And I hear every criticism. I have a lot of frustrations with Lange. He's not especially charismatic and stuff. And and I love Pertici to come back, but I just feel like we make it everything harder than it should or need to, and that's my issue.
But it goes back to that point. Remember when Ange said, whatever's in Romero, put it in the rest of them. I'm like, whatever's in whatever's in Perisic, go and put it in Johan Langer.
Our players are literally coming out against the club. Romero, Kulusevski,
Sonny. Yeah, I agree. Look, guys, I'm very conscious of the time for us all here. I know that I said it's an hour, but like everything in my life, nothing ever is on time. Look, on this point, just to be very, very clear, look, we're going to move on to Liverpool. We're going to squeeze in our final break of the show. Before I do, I have to get a real big comment, if I can, just in regards to Harry Kane. Now, Harry Kane, we understand, spoke to Tell behind the scenes with regards to potentially the fact of coming to Tottenham. And it was very, very praiseful, the fact that for Harry, he spoke very, very highly of the football club and just what it would be like for, obviously, Tell to be here. And, we've got to come on to those comments from Harry, because there were some really nice words there from Harry Kane. The fact he'd come, he'd enjoy it. The reality is that for him, he sees it as a great move for him. Kane said, I told him it's a very big football club, very good people. The pitch is very nice. The training centre is very good. And if you go there, you can enjoy it. So everything was really positive from Harry Kane. He reckons it's a great move for both parties. Matisse is a great guy. He's really hard-working, full of potential. It's really important to get minutes under his belt, get some regular game time, and hopefully develop and keep on improving and fulfill all the potential that he has. He reckons it's great for Tottenham to have a young, hungry player with loads of talent to hopefully score some goals and help push Tottenham as far as possible. He wishes them all the best and hopefully has a fantastic time here. And he's sure the fans are going to make him feel really, really welcome at the football club. Lovely words from Harry. And Dave, to stick with you, there has been reports that have been breaking across the last 24 hours that Harry Kane will have a 54 million release clause active next winter, while he had one of 67 million active in January of 2025. Kane, just to be very, very clear where we are with Harry Kane, Kane says to be extremely happy in Germany, has no thoughts of activating it soon, but should a rival club ever trigger it, Tottenham would have to decide whether to match the bid and then hope he prefers to move to Spurs. I'm going to ask everyone very quickly a yes or no on this. Dave, we'll start with you. Harry Kane, will we see him back in the Tottenham shirt, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Coming back to break the record.
Love that. Fantastic. So, yes or no? He's with the quickest answers over you've seen the last one on Spurs with 3 absolute talkers. So, yes or no, Harry Kane, when he come back to the football club?
No.
Oh, okay. George, what are we saying?
The romantic in me is saying yes. I wanted to finish his career at Spurs, so.
Okay. Listen, we've got a split panel there. We're edging it. We're edging it 2-1 for Si. I could have the casting vote, but I'm going to stay out of it because the Johan Langer for Fabio Paratici debate took us way overboard there, but wasn't it a great debate and we loved it? Look, we're going to close in. We're going to have a final couple minutes on Liverpool here. For our listeners on audio, you're going to hear from the guys over at Red Men TV that give you a Liverpool preview, and we are focusing on the fact Tottenham are 1 game away from Wembley, and Postecoglou very much buoyant of the fact Tottenham could be set for a Wembley appearance. I think we'll go back 4 or 5 years now. It's been that long for Tottenham heading back to Wembley, a massive opportunity. And says for him, he's very proud to be taking his Tottenham side into that semi-final at Anfield. I mean, guys, final thoughts on it. I think we've given some really good analysis with regards to what the game's going to be like, how we're going to obviously match up, and the fact, again, of what we're going to need the players to do. Very quickly, I think we'll close it on these points. George, where will the game, in your opinion, be won and lost?
Well, I think one thing that we need to mention as well, which I don't think we brought up yet, is the fact that because it is a cup game, there's going to be a bigger allocation for away fans. So I'm excited for the energy that we should be able to bring to Anfield as well throughout the game, which I think is going to be a big boost compared to like a normal Premier League game. So I'm looking forward to that a lot. And look, I think it's going to be such a difficult game. When they want to be on it, they're on it. And I think as well, we kind of need... It's very difficult to get a win at Anfield, put it that way. So I think a draw is probably the most realistic move that we could go for to be able to get the ultimate result we need, and that's getting to Wembley. So I for one, am absolutely buzzing for tomorrow. I think it's going to be a great game no matter what. And I'm just really, really hoping we get something over the line. So I'm leaning towards a draw just because I know how difficult getting a win at Anfield is. But that's all we need.
And a draw, of course, will take us through, just to be very, very clear. George, give us a prediction. What are you going for?
Let's go then for 2-2. Tell is going to get the let's call it the winning goal, the goal that sends us to the final.
the deciding goal. We hope so. Andrew's asked the question. This is the big match and probably the biggest of your Spurs career. Do you change anything for big matches or keep everyone as normal as per possible? We said, look, no, like I've said before, I think you need to embrace the challenge in front of your fans. It's very easy to just be going on about another game because it's not. Everyone knows the consequences of it, both us and the opposition. We're playing away from home. Certainly their crowd will give them a great deal of energy, which we have to deal with as well. It's a cup game. So there's a possibility of extra time, penalties. And of course, you have to prepare and factor those things into it. Just so it's clear, we know how much it'll mean for the supporters. The fundamentals of how we play won't change. But in terms of how we go about it, it will be a little bit different. So I'm going to get your thoughts on it. How do you see this game playing out? And do you feel we will see Tell from the start? Will we see Danso from the start? How do you see it panning out? Si?
Kinski, Danso, Davis, Poro, Spence. I think it's going to be Kulusevski, Bissouma, Bentancur, Tell, Richarlison, Son. I think it's going to be a close game. I think we'll concede. I think it'll be excruciating extra minutes, shit your pants type of nerves. And then I think it's going to go to penalties where we win. Vicario comes in and saves 2 penalties.
Wow, what a game. It plays out in the way Si's mind's going to be. It's going to be a cracker. Si, we can't thank you enough. I'm going to go around to Dave quickly. We're up against time here. We're up against time. Dave has also got a fan show that he's bringing you to go and link into that one. If you've got some time, make sure you go and head over to there. Dave and Postecoglou was asked about the fact whether the blueprint will change. He was asked, is the Man City win the blueprint for this one? They started well. You got through, you scored and took control. He said, look, to a certain extent, yes. I think the first game we played against Liverpool here, because if it's a tight game, you can limit the availability and ability of Liverpool in general to create a lot of chances, which we did on the night. And that's probably the best chances we created at that point in that game. That is more, and maybe it's slightly different in a way from home, but I felt that night we were really controlling our football. We pressed really well. We really denied any clear-cut opportunities, which is difficult against them, and we were always a threat the other way. We obviously scored, but had 1 millimetre offside with Dom, missing a big chance with Pedro as well. So that is more of a blueprint we want to take into it, because Liverpool are obviously a different team to City. They are different to most teams as well, particularly in the way they attack, and we'll have to be on our game in certain aspects, but also understand we have the capabilities to hurt them as well. Dave, big game, massive game. You'll be covering it, I know, on the Irish Hotspur. Dave, how do you see it panning out and what you're going for?
Look, it's a huge game. It's our biggest game of the season. And I think, to a degree, having these cup competitions have actually staved off a lot of, serious conversations around Tottenham, a bit like Pochettino in the Champions League final run, where it masked a lot of Tottenham's problems. And to be quite frank, I hope this can continue. I want to make the Carabao Cup final, keep masking the problems, for me at this point. I don't want to give up a trophy. But look, what I would say to these players and Ange Postecoglou, you've had a lot of scrutiny around you this year. You've had the media pulling you out. You've had, everything about you dissected, by fans, content creators, etc., etc. Use that as fuel heading into this game to get yourself over the line and prove absolutely everybody wrong. And I think if we can, I think you see this narrative around Tottenham start to change a little bit, where people will start acknowledging the amount of injuries that we had and how much it can come back to cost you and stuff like that. But you know what? For me, I think we're going to play the counter-attacking style of football. I'm going to go 1-1 tomorrow up in Anfield. We don't win. I don't think we will win. But all we need is a draw. And that's the best thing about being 1-0 up heading there. So let's go. Let's have it. Come on, you Spurs.
That was so beautifully put. I'm in. I'm locked in. Let's do this.
Right, we're locked in, we're all in, and we're in agreement. It's been a pretty good last one on Spurs, where we had a great debate there in the middle on Johan Langer's roles and Fabio Paratigi's roles. I hope they're listening. They're always listening. They're always watching. Guys, take note. We need and deserve better. It's a big semi-final. Spurs are 1 game away from Wembley. They are 1 game away from a cup final. 1 game away from potentially ending that trophy drought. I want to say a massive thank you to the wonderful George Achillea. George, thank you so much. We're going to see you very, very soon. Where can the masses find you, George?
Yes. I mean, I'm going up tomorrow, so I'm buzzing for that.
We're so excited for you.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of content's going on Instagram at the moment, but it's pretty much just my name here across every platform, YouTube, Instagram, whatever it is. But first and foremost, let's just get that win tomorrow. Come on, you Spurs.
G, you're a superstar. Thank you so much for all your support during this last month. We're going to see you very, very soon. We are bless you. Yeah. Simon Yemane, the wonderful Simon Yemane, I say the resident therapist in the Spurs community that we all turn to an extra search for when we need him. when things don't go so well. But listen, they are going to go well. We are going to reach Wembley. We are going to win a bloody trophy. Si, thank you so much. So where can they find you if we all, well, we are definitely going to pick me up. Whatever happens, where can we find you?
I actually don't want to promote myself. I want to promote my nieces who's had a tough week. Here are their drawings. I love you guys. Everything's going to be okay. And I hope I'll see you later this week. Here you go. Nice, right?
I can just say, so for context there, I think for those that are aware or those that aren't aware, there was a really big tragedy that happened in Sweden, a killing of 11 people. Like I say, I hope Simon will be sharing this, not too far from where he's based. And obviously, like I say, having young nieces to unfortunately be in that area when it's happened is absolutely tragic. So we send all our love and thoughts out to you, Simon. We thank you again for finding the time for coming on, given this really difficult period. So bless you, Si. Loving you very much. We're going to see you very, very soon. We are. The wonderful Simon Yemane. We're ending with a wonderful David the Irish Hotspur. You can go and check Dave out for instant reaction and what's going on in that game if he can somehow contain himself. Dave's back almost later in the week, so we're going to see what's going to happen. Dave, thank you so much. Where can the masses find you? You bless your heart.
No, look, it's been an absolute pleasure. And, you know, I absolutely love this. I live for this. I live for this football club. Look, you can find me over at the Irish Hotspur if you like my contributions. I will warn, on match days, it's very emotional. I go with the emotion of the game. So, you know, if that's not your cup of tea, I'd say stay well away. If it is, feel free to join me. But look, I really enjoyed myself tonight. Thank you very much, guys. And Spurs fans, regardless of what happens tomorrow, it's the biggest game of the season. This is what we live for. Go into the game with expectations, excitement, and let's see what can happen.
Brilliant. Listen, from us all here, from the wonderful George Achillea, from the superb Simon Yemane, from the ever-brilliant David Irish Hotspur, we have been the last word on Spurs. Playing us out for listeners on audio, it's a bit of Chaz and Dave. As always, please keep safe, keep well. Please, God, Spurs are on their way to Wembley. Thank you so much for your support. And as always, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.